We are back from our lunch break. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and we're ready for Department 6, which is a agenda item to discuss the Holt Correctional Facility Mental Health Housing Pods design update.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner. This is an informative presentation, or for the record, Sean Donahue, General Services Director. This is an informative presentation of the efforts, the design efforts for the Holt Correctional Facility Mental Health Housing Pods. If you remember, back in 2024, we received a state appropriation of $500,000 to do the design conceptual study of the mental health housing pods. And then in January of 2025, we selected Securotecture LLC to do that design. Today's agenda, we're going to discuss the need for the project. We have Sheriff Budenseek and staff here to discuss the need for the project. And then Joe Marak from Securotecture will go through the project overview, the conceptual design, and the cost estimating. And from here, I'll turn it straight over to Sheriff Budenseek.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Good afternoon.
I appreciate you letting me take some of your time. I'm probably going to be a little longer winded than I normally am, and it's not for you all, it's for our audience that's watching this, and it's kind of a refresher of how we got to where we are today. And I've got several pages of notes, so if you would indulge me. This is in preparation for the Martin County delegation meeting. And in the delegation meeting, my part of it will be to just specifically speak about the mental health pod, and that's kind of where I'll stay. But today I'm going to broaden our scope a little bit because it all, and you'll see how it all plays in together as far as building this new pod and the new bed space. We have two competing pressures that have finally come to a crossroads. One is the size of the jail, how many beds that we can currently have in the jail, and the other is mental illness. And I'm going to start with the size of our jail, a little bit of history. In 1989, we completed our existing jail. That was 36 years ago. And that was built with forethought. Our commissioners at the time and the people that ran that project, one of which just passed away, unfortunately, they thought ahead and they built a jail that was adequate in size. Our population back then was a little less than 100,000 people, and we built a jail that could house 700 inmates, more than large enough of a jail for that time. At that time also, classification was different. Let me explain classification, if I may. Classification is how inmates are classified, and I know it's a really simple way to say it, but there's certain inmates that are not allowed to have contact with one another. And back in the 1980s, early 2000s, it was pretty simple. Bad people were bad people. You put them in jail if they commingled. That was just the way that it was. So back then, you had to keep male and female separate. And then juveniles had to be kept separate from the both of them. So it was not that hard to house inmates in the jail based on the classification system back then. Since that time, moving forward to where we are currently today, there's 12 different classifications in the jail. There's males and females, juveniles, special status, which that would be like a violent offender, a murderer that just can't get along with anybody that comes back from DOC, or a high-profile offender, felons and misdemeanors, protective custody. Those are normally sex offenders that go in there that we know if they get in general population, somebody will likely hurt them or kill them. Special management, admin confinement, disciplinary confinement, and now we're dealing with ICE, civil immigration holds, both male and female. So there's 12 different categories of individuals that we have to keep separate in our jail today, which is almost impossible to do. It is impossible to do properly. Those standards are passed down to us by Florida legislation under the Floor Model Jail Standards Act, which is meant to keep the civil rights of our inmates intact and really to keep them safe. And there, as you know, there's a lot of bad things that happen in jails because there's a lot of bad people that are in the jails. Today, as you know, our population is 165,000, and based on approved building projects that are already approved, we know that our population is going to go up by several more thousand individuals. It's not just Martin County's growth that applies here. While we're growing, Palm Beach County has grown into us, and I don't have to tell you, Port St. Lucie has boomed. So it's a combination of our normal calls for service with Martin County population, and then the others that come into Martin County that we end up arresting on a day-to-day basis, which keeps our jail at capacity day in and day out. We have had to be, over the years, extremely thoughtful about programs that we enact in order to keep our population in check in the jail. And in 2022, we started what we call a pretrial program. I know some of the commissioners worked with us on that. And the goal with that was for misdemeanors, people that come in the jail with low-level offenses that don't have a likelihood of reoffending or being a problem for our citizens of Martin County, that just don't have the money to bond out. We created a legal mechanism for them to go see a judge, and a judge could put them on pretrial detention, meaning that they're between their initial arrest and getting sentenced. It's essentially a bond without paying a bond that's supervised by us, the Martin County Sheriff's Office, and paid for by you, the county. That allows us to take 70 individuals today out of the jail. There's 70 individuals that are not in jail as a result of this program. Another thing we did to be thoughtful with the Martin County Sheriff's Office jail was we stopped the weekend program about 10 years ago. And the reason is weekends as a whole tend to have more inmates coming in. And then on top of that, we were bringing in sometimes 30 inmates that were sentenced just to do weekend hours. So you had your normal jail population throughout the week, then you got your influx of weekend offenders, the drunks, the people that can't get along with their wives, and then you got 30 inmates on top of that. And so we eliminated that program through the judicial system in order to keep that from taking place. Today, our population is running right around 600 people, and I know the number I gave you when I started was 700. So the jail will house, technically on paper, 696 people, almost 700 individuals. Today, we're running 600, but because of classification, we can't commingle these people, so 600 is at capacity. And you've toured the jail. I think all of you have toured the jail, and I appreciate you doing that. And you've seen that we have individuals sleeping on the floor on what we call boats, I believe, and sleeping in confinement cells. And we really have people spread out all throughout the jail in order to comply with the Florida Model and Jail Standards Act and to keep our inmates safe. Moving on to the issue at hand, and the other angle that plays into this is interspersed in there are the mentally ill individuals. And Sheriff Snyder, if you all know him, was forward-thinking. And he came here to this commission many years ago now, before 2020, and explained how when he was driving out of the jail one day, he looked at an inmate who was probably mentally ill and said to himself, hey, I'll see you in a couple days, and he would be back. And the recidivism rate has been real with the mentally ill. They get out of jail, they come back. It's just a back and forth thing that's been going on for years. And we know, based on the jail setting, the clanging doors, the lights, the inmates that are all around you, that unfortunately the mentally ill come into the jail, they don't necessarily get better. They deteriorate. They get worse. And I'll give you an example of this. 3 years ago now, we had an inmate come in for a misdemeanor. I believe it was a trespassing case, misdemeanor. But he was mentally ill. And because he was mentally ill, he reoffended while incarcerated, spit on one of our deputies, got in a fight, so he got a felony. And he has progressively deteriorated while he's been in our jail, and we've done our best to give him the care that he needs. We've sent him out to the state hospital. They've sent him back to us. And he's continued to deteriorate up until the point where 2 weeks ago he spit on Judge Roby. If you saw that on the news, he spit on Judge Roby. This is an individual that we believe, if we were properly positioned, could have come in our jail on that misdemeanor charge. We could have put him in the right setting, got him the right treatment, and kept him from reoffending. But here we are, 3 years later, we have an individual that just keeps mounting his legal problems. In Martin County, mental illness is a very real thing, and I have a lot of stats. I'm trying to be brief in what I'm hitting here, but in 2024, we had 447 Baker Acts. That's people taken against their will and put in a receiving facility, not the jail. This year, we're tracking towards 518. That's a 16% increase from last year. This year, to date already, we've had 22 people that have already taken their lives. We weren't able to save them. And then the rest of them end up in, our jail, your jail, the Martin County Jail. And I'll give you an example of mental illness, unfortunately, from Saturday. We had a 14-year-old autistic young man launch himself off the Roosevelt Bridge, and thank God he didn't pass. Most of them do die. He actually walked away with no injuries. But it's every single day we have calls involving the mentally ill. And every single day we incarcerate them if we can't Baker them. Today, out of our roughly 600 inmates, 155 of them are on psychotropic medications. That's 26% of our current population in the jail are on psychotropic medication. And really, that's why we're here today, is to try to address that and cut that down. As already mentioned, Representative Snyder, a couple years ago under Sheriff Snyder's watch, started helping get us funding secured to do a site survey study and try to draw up some plans, which we're going to go over today, to try to help us start the process of expanding our jail, building a mental health pod. And just to be clear, I know you're going to see some photos. This still has to be a jail at the end of the day, so it's not going to be just pads and flowers in there. It still has to be a jail at some rate. But across the state, and I've talked to our state representatives, I've talked to our senator, across the state, no one is properly handling the mentally ill. There's no real place to put them. They can't stay in a receiving facility for more than 72 hours. If you don't have the insurance money, which most of the individuals we're dealing with are indigent, if you don't have the insurance money, you can't send them away to a private facility. So they do get stuck in our jail. And so Representative Snyder came to me a couple months ago and said, this year I'm in leadership. I'm positioned well to maybe offset the cost that comes out of the Martin County taxpayers' dollars to build this facility. And I think they'll discuss numbers here in a minute. It's expensive. We're talking about a $60 million project. Now, moving forward, even if the state came forward, and I don't think they will, but even if they came forward to us and funded the entire project, paid for the whole thing, there's nothing that's free. It won't be free to us. There's recurring costs that will move on down the road. We're building a sizable facility. It'll be over 300 beds. Again, that will catch us up to where we need to be, and then hopefully it'll give us enough leeway to move into the future. But even if the cost is covered, down the road in a couple of years, we're looking at, from my angle, from being the sheriff, 24 new positions in the jail, which represents about $2.5 million of recurring costs that will take place. So while we're all about the project, I think I've made a case that it's a necessary project, not just for the mental ill, but we have to do something with our jail population as it is. It will cost money moving forward. I did what I always do. I came with a couple layers of backup. If you want to ask me questions now, I'll try to answer them, or I can wait till the end of the presentation and we can weigh in. It's up to you. So,
Have any questions, or you want to wait?
I can wait.
We'll wait.
thank you, Commissioners. Appreciate it.
For the record, I'm Joseph Marak, the president of Securitecture, and I would like to start by thanking the commissioners for allowing Securitecture the opportunity to be of service to Martin County. As I start, from a schedule standpoint, we began this project back in early January and put about 8 months of effort into this. And throughout that period of time, we exercised a 5-step process, a kind of a tried and true master planning process that we've used for several decades. And during that 8-month period, we had several in-person meetings, and we had regularly scheduled Teams meetings, virtual meetings, every 2 weeks. So what we are presenting today is the culmination of an 8-month effort and an abbreviation of the full 277-page report, which we'll spare you of that. Let's see. So the majority of this concept is essentially 2 housing pods, and each of the housing pods actually takes up the same footprint of space, but they're different capacities of inmates and they're slightly different square footages, and I'll explain that in a little while. But what we're calling Cell Pod 1, or Phase 1, consists of 6 cell blocks. These are these gold-colored cell blocks around the perimeter. And the cell blocks are, besides being divided horizontally from each other, is complete sight and sound separation between one and the next cell block. They're also divided vertically. So there's a mezzanine level, which we'll show a little bit later too, that can be subdivided, what we call a sub-day room, can be subdivided from a security standpoint from the lower level day room, allowing us 12 different classifications. The sheriff mentioned classifications. The more classifications we have, the more flexibility we have in the operation of the facility. So we have a total of, in Housing Pod 1, it's a maximum capacity of 176 beds. Now, what I'll say is each of these cells is designed to accommodate 2 people. So it meets all the standards for 2 people, square footage, airflow, furniture and equipment, lighting, and so forth. However, due to the type of classifications that certain people will have, they can't be housed with another person. Some of these will be actually operated as single cells. But what we have done is design all of the cells to allow double bunking for maximum flexibility at a minimal cost. Then in addition to the 176 beds of the Cell Pod 1, the salmon-colored area is the programming and treatment components that is housed within the cell block. So a couple things that are different with this cell block is the inmates will not have to move out of the cell block for any of their programming. So these spaces include small classrooms, treatment and programming rooms, staff offices that are providing this programming is there, a medical room in each pod, and an indoor and outdoor recreation area within the pod. So the movement is minimized with this special population, making it safer for those inmates and safer and much more efficient for the staff. The second housing pod, which we call Phase 2, is similar, like I said, it's similar in footprint, but and it still has 6 cell blocks that are capable of being divided into 2. But the cell blocks, you'll notice, are smaller. If I can go back one, I guess I can. Yep. Okay. So the 6 cell blocks of the first pod, 4 of these cell blocks are the mental health step-down program. So these are the 4 mental health units. Then we have disciplinary segregation and administrative segregation in that housing pod. In the second housing pod, there are also additional segregation classifications we have to accommodate. There's more disciplinary and administrative segregation. We also have what's called shelter care. So those that are infirm or elderly, for both male and female, can be housed separated from other inmates that may be more predators. You notice that there's less capacity of beds in this particular cell pod, but there is a greater amount of program space. The classrooms are bigger and another indoor-outdoor recreation. So these 2 pods side by side will contain all of those special populations that are kind of staff intensive into one location, making it much more efficient. So this is an aerial view of the site taken from the south, and there's a couple of things. This Phase 1 pod is this orange one here. Then the gold pod is the Phase 2. Then there's a couple other areas in the jail we took a look at as well, because we did an analysis of the existing facility as the process. There's some visitation space that is being updated to improve safety and security there. There's a new staff entrance and an updated staff entrance in this area of the building. And then there's an overhead walkway connector, a covered walkway connector between the B-Pod corridor and the minimum security housing to continue that corridor into the existing minimum security building. So that's the facility in general. So the way these buildings lay out is, again, there's the 2 pods side by side. The one on the left is the larger inmate capacity. And this is the first floor. So we have essentially a day room space with the first floor level of cells. And the day room of each of these day rooms is actually sized to accommodate both the lower level capacity cells and the upper level capacity of the cells. Even though we have the ability to separate the day rooms vertically, you may choose to operate them as one or lock the upper level down from the lower level and operate them as separate. As long as the upper level and the lower level are the same gender, we can put different classifications of people in those two units. So again, it goes back to the flexibility of operations and meeting that that mission that constantly evolves. So this is the first floor, and the pictures on the lower level are kind of photos, typical photos of what you might expect of what the day rooms, classrooms, and the recreation area looks like. The recreation, indoor and outdoor recreation area, again, is fully enclosed. It has a roof, and it has an operable window, as you might see, on an outside wall that has a security screen on it that can be opened, and fresh air and sunlight can come in the space, and that allows that space to meet the requirements of the ACA and the Florida Model Jail standards. Then on the mezzanine level, you can see that there is another layer of cells up top, and then we have these somewhat triangular shape day room spaces on the upper level. So these upper level mezzanines, again, can be secured off from the lower level. The square footage of those mezzanines meet all the square footage requirements for all of those cells as if they were double bunked. And you'll note that the control room is on the mezzanine level. So the first floor there's a secure vestibule underneath the elevated control room. The elevated control room is about 10 or 11 feet above the day room floor. So people are moving from the day rooms out the corridor from below the control room. This gives you a direct line of sight, almost 360 degrees from the control room, which you can see photographs of a typical control room. This one actually is probably Okeechobee. But you have a direct line of sight from the control room into the day room space. Unlike your existing facility, you're typically looking through multiple layers of glass. So we've prepared a fly-through here. It's a short 2-minute video, so I'm going to have to talk really fast as we go through this. But we start as an aerial image from the south side. We're going to fly through here, and we're going to enter through the roof of the cell pod number 1. And as you can see, there's an elevated portion of the roof that allows clear story lighting into all the day rooms. So we're introducing a lot more daylight than typical. This is the elevated control room. Again, it's a near 360-degree view, elevated about 10 feet above the day room floors. You have views into all the cell blocks, the corridor. You're looking now into the indoor and outdoor recreation area. You're looking into 2 of these cell blocks, and you can see how the mezzanine level has a security screen separating it from the day room. The day rooms, as I mentioned, can accommodate the full population of that quadrant. That allows you to provide extra square footage for inmate programs. So we're moving along the glass cell fronts. There's a lot of glass in these to allow good visibility of these special populations. Then we're going to move through one of the communicating doors into the adjacent cell block, which looks very similar. And you can see the control room there. That glass, again, is reflective glass, so from the day room side, it's effectively a mirror. And you're seeing from the control room into the day room without the mirror. So we're going to exit now through the corridor underneath the control room. All of the day rooms are accessible from this vestibule below the control room, and access to the program spaces such as the indoor-outdoor recreation area, which we're going to go into now with its shutter open. And then go back through the door on the other side of the corridor. Still underneath the control room, you have access into this first classroom. And the control room actually can have direct observation in that control room or in that classroom as well. So moving back into the PowerPoint, these are kind of typical, similar images of what you would have here. We're suggesting the use of modular steel cells. Secure Texture has been using modular steel cells for about 35 years now. These are prefabricated off-site, And the way they're delivered to the job site is exactly what you see here. The only thing not installed when it gets to the job site is that shower curtain. The other thing that's unique about these, we're putting a shower in every cell, and we have proven over time that showers in cells actually are safer, and it's much more efficient because there's a toilet in the cell already. We already have hot water, cold water, drain, exhaust air supplier, and so forth. And we don't have inmates walking across the day room floors with wet feet and falling, hitting their head on the concrete, and you take them to the hospital. So these are the kind of cells that, and these, even though they're prefabricated, they're fully customizable. They can put whatever kind of furniture you want in there. You can do it whatever color you want. We're showing typical stainless steel fixtures in here. And you notice the lower right-hand photograph, the cell fronts have a lot of glass in it. And again, that's all goes back to safety and security. Because of the design of the direct wall between the control room and the day room floors, no inmate is any further than 45 feet from the direct line of sight from the control room. So the visibility in the control room is very strong. These are some day room side photographs. You'll notice in the upper left-hand corner, there's one of the Keen screens that separates the upper level from the lower level. This bottom area is actually a sub-day room from another project. And this, in this particular concept, this was a screen. So you have airflow and noise and things like that moving through it. These sub-day rooms can also be subdivided with glass if you prefer. These are typical photographs of the recreation area. Again, this is an actual indoor-outdoor recreation with the operable wall. And this is a photograph of that shutter when it's in the closed position. And then the classrooms can take on any type of character you want. You can put something rather simple in here, or you can decorate them with different kinds of furniture and color and things like that to accommodate that mental health or behavioral health kind of environment that we need to create here. As I mentioned, we're a strong proponent of modular construction, but it's not just the cells. But we can actually modularize the control room as well. And the advantage of modular construction is, one, it'll take easily 4 to 5 months out of the construction schedule. Well, that saves the county a lot of money. It's also a little bit easier to maintain quality control in a factory setting than it is on the construction site. So there's a lot of advantages to it. And with overlapping construction, we can just get this thing up and running quicker. So from a cost standpoint, there's 3 components to cost. One is the hard construction cost, which is bricks and mortar, and the construction-related soft costs. Soft costs are those things that you have to spend money on in order to achieve the bricks and mortar. That's things like architecture and engineering fees, construction manager fees, surveys and soil borings and things of that nature. And then there's soft costs that we call occupancy-related. That's the money you need to spend and actually use your building. Okay, well, we need to put new furniture in here. We have IT and computers and telephones and other types of equipment that we have to provide and build into the building before we can actually use it. So these construction cost numbers that we're showing you are total project costs. It's the bricks and mortar and all the soft costs associated with it. And we've also included some allowances for, we know you're not going to start construction today, so we need to build another year or so worth of inflation into these numbers. And we've put a contingency in here because we've been doing this a long time, and we know that we need to put money in there to allow the design team, allow the county to make decisions on, well, are we going to just put sealed concrete floors on, or are we going to put epoxy floors in? Do we want to do this, or do we do that? There's an allowance in there to allow you to make decisions on the project yet. I mean, there's thousands of decisions still to make. So basically on the center section here, we have the phased project total phase 1. We have a low to high on the cell pot of $30 to $35 million. And again, we always do this in a range, again, to give you flexibility. And then those small projects like the canopy, the staff entrance, and the attorney visitation, those add up to about another $500,000 or so in total project cost to execute those. So total, we're looking at $30 to $36 million in project costs for phase 1. And then phase 2 is approximately another $29 to $33 million. So with that, I will entertain any questions that you may have.
Questions for Mr. Marak or for the sheriff? Commissioner Campy.
Mr. Marak, thank you for your presentation. Just a general question. Can you back to the last slide?
Let's see. Okay.
So if I'm looking at this correct, if we did it as a single or phased, you don't show, unless it's just calculated and after the fact, you don't show additional expense if we stretched it out, but there would be, because it would be a year or so lag, correct?
Yes, there would be some delay. Again, each of these numbers includes 1 year of inflation. If it goes 2 to 3 years, we would need to add a little more inflation to that.
Correct, but if we did it all at once for 70 million or 65 million versus stretching it out into the two phases, you're layering in some time for inflation, but if we stretch it, it would be additional time.
Yes. And if you did it all in one phase, it would probably tend to be closer to the lower of the range as opposed to the higher of the range.
Have you built anything, your company, have you built anything like this already?
Mental health or the pods?
Well, the pod concept.
Yes.
What we do inside doesn't make a difference to you.
Right.
You've designed it that way, but just the nuts and bolts of this, you've done these before,
Several of these. The most recent one is in Okeechobee,
okay?
so we could take a road trip. I'll be there tomorrow. We designed 2 of these housing pods in Okeechobee. They built one, occupied it. We're finishing the second housing pod. And those housing pods each hold 212 beds with 2 classrooms and an indoor and outdoor recreation area. They use the modular cells. The one difference structurally in Okeechobee, we use pre-engineered metal buildings in Okeechobee. And here we're suggesting an exterior shell of a tilt-up or precast concrete, because what we're doing, we were able to use in Okeechobee pre-engineered metal buildings because after every building, we could separate them by 20 feet and comply with fire. We were able to compartmentalize the building to reduce it to a building that we don't have to fire rate. On this project, we have a little tighter campus to deal with, so we did it out of concrete, so we have inherently fire-rated shells on this particular option. But this very near option or example of this would be just a few miles up the road.
So they obviously did the phased approach and did one, and now they're doing the other.
Yes,
Have you seen a large increase from the first phase to the second?
yes.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah. We started the first one in the midst of COVID, and we started the second one kind of toward at the end of COVID. So it was probably about a 3% increase, which we thought was really good considering the amount of inflation we had to endure during the first one.
Not that it's necessarily your thing, but you must have to factor in where the money comes from. What did Okeechobee do in terms of paying for it?
Yeah. Well, they had a Plan B. When we started design, we designed, because the design was to take their existing 230-bed jail, tear down all the existing housing components, rebuild all the housing, replace the kitchen and the laundry, and then renovate the sheriff's office and the intake. So that was all designed as a single project, and they missed the opportunity to fund it all at once. And so they ended up funding it. That's why they're building it in phases, because that gave them the opportunity to fund it one at a time. So it was a combination of grants and money from the state and selling short-term. They didn't do any bond issues for it. They did short-term loans by reconfiguring some of it. So each of the housing pods in Okeechobee the construction cost was around $17 million, and the total project was about $23 million. The other thing they did to save a lot of money was they did a lot of direct purchase. And so, like, one of the advantages of these modular cells, they were able to buy them whole and take the tax savings from that. So they did a lot of DPO type of work on it that reduced their construction costs by several $1 million.
Excellent. I appreciate that. I'll see if my colleagues have any other questions. And then
I do. I have some observations, too. The first observation is that we this is not part of our capital improvement plan. We don't have any money set aside for this. We don't have any money available. And we have a legislature that is determined to reduce our ad valorem collections. So right now, 44% of our entire budget comes from ad valorem, which the legislature is determined to reduce. And of that 44%, 2/3 of that is used for public safety operations. And the legislature is not planning on replacing any of those lost revenues. So I'm seeing some impossible budgets in the future. I recognize that Sheriff, you have a need. I certainly understand that, but so does every other county in the state of Florida, and it has to be a state solution. We are just not equipped to handle the kind of expenditures that you're proposing for us. Not for capital, certainly not for operations. You know, we are looking at shrinking revenues. And also, we are not equipped, we're not trained to be mental health professionals. If this is going to be a mental health hospital, it's going to require mental health professionals in order to treat inmates, in order to treat criminals. So we're going to have doctors, nurses, therapists, all sorts of people like that in order to treat our mental health inmates. I recognize that it's a problem, but man, I don't have a financial solution for you. And not having a clear idea of what the future is going to present me, I'm unprepared I don't know how to proceed. Commissioner Heatherington.
I'm really, first of all, you did a very good job of explaining this, a very complicated topic, and even broke it down to the construction costs, hard, soft, and phases. So nice presentation. And I'm encouraged to hear what you said about Okeechobee, because talk about a county that doesn't have a lot of tax resources. So I'm encouraged to hear that you say that they were able to find some multi-funding sources. And quite frankly, I thought your presentation was going to come in double the numbers. And we've heard some massive numbers in the past. So I'm encouraged by your presentation. I don't think there's a solution today, but we're looking at even public works and some buildings that are rather expensive. I like the fact that there's prefabrication. There's some solutions to buy down some of these costs. So I think I know it's just a presentation. We have to work together with our legislative delegation and the state to find some funds. But I will have to say that I'm almost relieved and encouraged by what you presented, because I think it could have been much, much worse. And I actually had a question, probably more for the sheriff, Baker Acts and the trends of some of these mental health components. So you said even 400 we had last year, and now we have 500 Baker Acts. So that seems a high percentage for 160,000 residents. I don't know if you consider, if that's how you apportion it, but how does that look over, to say, the last 5 years, if you're looking at a trend line, and what do you see for the next couple years?
Well, I would like to say we're going to go backward, but that has not been the trend. So this conversation started again under Sheriff Snyder pre-COVID, pre-2020. And I hate even talking about COVID, but when we went into COVID, the mental health calls for service went up exponentially, and we've stayed on par with that all the way through this year. Every year, and I don't have every number. I brought pages, but it'll take me too long to data mine that. Every year it's gone up. It has not gone backward.
And is that across the state? And it's just not in Martin County, it's across the state?
It's across the board. I talked to other sheriffs that are dealing with the same problem. The governor has been tracking with it. They did an article a couple months ago about how there's no real place for these individuals to land. They end up dead, they end up for 72 hours, or they end up in jail. And I want to touch, Commissioner, you're 100% right. We don't want to, we're not a facility, but they're in there anyway. So while they're there, we want to make the best of their time and try to at least get them stabilized so they don't come back to us. But we don't want to waste their time and our time too. And again, like the individual I pointed out earlier, they keep reoffending and they just stay longer and longer. It does cost us money to keep these people in there for an extended period of time. But Commissioner, your base question is it getting better? And the answer is it's not for anyone. It's not just the state of Florida, it's across the whole country.
Thank you.
Is it?
Commissioner Campy.
Sheriff. Thank you. Listen, I don't disagree with what my colleagues have said, specifically Commissioner Hurd. I don't think the sheriff and his team want to be here today. I'm sure you could be still constructing. I'm sure prison construction is booming business from what I hear on TV and stuff. It's not like, America has the highest rate of inmates in the world, correct?
Pretty much.
Yeah. So I don't think you'll go out of business anytime soon, so it's not like you're scrambling to get another contract from us. If not us, then someone else. And I agree that we haven't necessarily have a CIP sheet for this, but all the way back now to Sheriff Snyder, he sounded the alarm several years ago on this, so you're not surprising us, at least I'm not surprised. I'm appreciative of the fact that we have gone through a logical, seems to be methodical process with great thanks from the legislature through Representative Snyder for $500,000 is a legitimate amount of money that at least now we're starting to figure out instead of guessing actually what would this cost. And like Commissioner Hetherington, you could have come in here and said it would be $110 million, and we would have said, all right, well, that's the number. So not that $60 to $70 million is anything to sneeze at, but I had two questions for the sheriff, if you don't mind, sir. Based on the amount of money that you're spending now to try to, and I've been there and I remember seeing it, I think most people assume an inmate overpopulation problem is just all the same inmates. Like you had said earlier, you have to differentiate these people. Now, I know that maybe there's not as much compassion for folks that are incarcerated amongst the general public, but I was there visiting with your team. And you can imagine if you're in there for a mental health issue, like you said originally, that gentleman had a misdemeanor. And if they're mixed and mingled and they're tweaked by the light, the sound, I was only there for probably an hour and a half or so, and I couldn't wait to leave. I also wonder the effect it has on your staff, the mental health, and what the cost is for the mental health and physical health of your staff. Because when you're in with this volatile population, imagine this brewing pot of water. You already know it. I stood with your team in that observation pod or whatever the control tower and looked down, and it's boiling over. Have you seen, would there be cost efficiencies from creating this new pod in terms of what you're forced to put together now versus had you had the appropriate system?
I hate to put numbers to it because I don't know that it's quantifiable. I can just kind of double down on what you just said. Our deputies get hurt all the time. We sent a sergeant out Saturday night that got in a fight with a mentally ill individual. He got hurt, ended up with a hand injury down in Martin South. So then he's out of work. We're paying overtime to backfill his position. Like, that's a constant thing that's happened in the jail. We've had 130 use of force fights in our facility just this year so far. That's a lot of interaction fights that culminates in injured deputies, injured inmates, who, by the way, if an inmate goes out of our facility for care because of these fights, then we're stuck with two deputies sitting on a hospital room, babysitting them, while, again, we backfill their positions. So there's a lot of unassociated costs that are really hard to to hammer down on, but I would like to speculate that it will reduce our costs, again, because we can keep these individuals separate. I didn't touch on this initially because I was trying to be brief for you, but it's mental illness from the complete psychotic individuals all the way to, we have elderly inmates in there with dementia. And a lot of them are extremely aggressive. They don't know why they're there. They can't remember who's who, and they get in fights with the younger people that don't care about them. So I think there would be a cost savings. I hate to say that, though, because
and
I
I'm
feel
not-
like there's always the bait and switch going on in these
I appreciate that.
conversations.
To your point about elderly, right up the road at the facility on Indian Street, you had, when that facility was still open at the corner of Canner and Indian, one of the residents killed another resident. They were both senior citizens. And I just read in the paper that a grandmother killed another grandmother, not here. Then my next question for you is, there is a cost of us doing nothing beyond what you had mentioned with injury, overtime, timeout because someone's hurt, timeout when the time when an inmate is in jail, hospitalized. We just, thanks to, again, I guess, Representative Snyder worked on some of those costs for inmate medical costs, but we bear those expenses. So we could look at the $50 or $60 million if it ended up being that, because as the gentleman said, there were some ways to bring that number down. If we just looked at that number and said, we can't afford to pay it, well, what are we paying behind the scenes that we're not really tagging to this account? Would you see, and I know you're not a lawyer, but we have lawyers, knowing if I was an attorney, which I'm not, but if I were, if someone I knew was in your system and got hurt by a mentally ill inmate and was severely hurt or, God forbid, killed, lawyers are going to flood in and start suing you, by extension us. The liability, the legal liability of not doing anything is not just a Martin County problem. That's got to be a nationwide county problem. There's got to be some value put on the fact that we would do this. I don't think we're necessarily being proactive. I think we're being reactive because the problem already exists. You didn't come and say, 3 years from now, I foresee we're having this problem. You came today to say, and so did Sheriff Snyder years ago, we already have this problem. In my mind, with all deference to Commissioner Hurd, I think the bigger expense, and I'm still only speaking in dollars and cents, is bigger for doing nothing than for us to figure out how we have to pay for this. That being said, there's a human cost. You said that original gentleman, using him as an example, he was originally a misdemeanor. He's got a family. He might have children, a spouse, parents, siblings, people that care about him. Had he been addressed appropriately, and I'm not saying that it was any fault on our part because you got a whole revolving door of people in there, the human cost of us doing nothing, one for the people that have the mental illness and the other for the people that are either supervising them or being forced to live in proximity to them. You can't put a dollar sign on that, but it still needs to be considered. So I would tell you from my perspective, I'm interested in the next step of this, with all due respect to Commissioner Hurd, that we can't do nothing. And I know that there's no sheet for it, but as much as we're trying to figure out a way to build a new maintenance facility for the county, because it's something that needs to happen for the decades going forward, so does this. And I don't think the human costs are as dire for our maintenance facility, which I still want, as they are for what you're talking about. And I'm sure you wish you weren't here today discussing this. We certainly wish you weren't, but you are.
If I can double down, Commissioner, I feel like this is not just a feeling, it's a pay me now or pay me later scenario that we're in. And I actually agree with you, Commissioner Hurd. I understand where we're headed. I've been at the governor's meetings. I get both sides of the equation. The reason why we're here today and getting prepared for the legislative session is there may be the potential for a significant amount of money out of the state of Florida to offset what we don't have in Martin County. So that's really the push. is they've provided the money for us to get ready, and the ask is that we can go in there and really push hard to get some funding to offset what's happening here in Martin County, because I understand where we're headed. It's been pretty clear that we're cutting property taxes. I've talked to Blaze, who our CFO, I've talked to our local state reps, and it's coming. It's just a matter of time. But thank you for your comments.
Yeah, and I'm not advocating doing nothing. I'm just saying this is a statewide problem, and it's going to require a statewide solution. Commissioner Capps.
I think this discussion really underscores the importance of home rule. And now every community in Florida is different. You know, think about it. Certain counties, perhaps some of the smaller rural counties, maybe they don't have a great need for jail expansion. But we happen to have it now. Maybe another county had a jail built 10 years ago. But I think it's been, how long? 30 years for us? 36 years for us. Somebody else might be 18 years ago. Some other county might be a rapidly growing county, like up there around Jacksonville or something, where some of those really booming counties, where is it, like Deltona and stuff? Is that one of the areas that's exploding in Florida? Every community is so different, and that's why home rule is so important, and why it's best for local government officials to have a good bit of discretion about what to do with resources. I had a question about general demand, and what do counties do when there is a pressing need for more jail space? Like, say you were the sheriff in Broward County or someplace that was really exploding in growth, and there's a need for.
We don't wish that on you.
No.
What do they do?
They end up putting more people in programs like I mentioned earlier, the pretrial program, which we run a tight ship with pretrial here, but again, that's mostly misdemeanor. It's coming in for a low-level offense that we can, instead of making them post bond, which they can't do because most of them are indigent, we get them out with a judge's order, and then we keep tabs on them. We track them, we check in on them. That's the plan, but what ends up happening in these larger jurisdictions is then they start, okay, well, we're good with 70 misdemeanors out, now let's try 70 felons. So you end up with these revolving door jail mentalities with some real bad people on the street. And that's how they alleviate some of their pressures. Another thing I didn't mention is Martin County, the 19th Circuit did a good job here by standing up mental health court. So that's somewhere where we push these mentally ill people into also and get them into programs outside of the jail. So we've been thoughtful. It's not just come in here and ask. The commission's worked with this on every project. The 19th Circuit understands it. But we've been careful to keep our Martin County residents safe. And you see in these larger counties, the revolving door doesn't work. It just creates more crime.
And then, let's see, I had another question about perhaps other examples in the state of Florida where county governments have needed to actually put tax dollars into something, just in general jail expansion. Like, how often is this done? Do you have any thoughts about that?
So,
Our consultant here.
yeah, well, go ahead.
Well, I'll say, first of all, I have spent my entire 44-year career designing jails and courthouses. So there is no shortage of those things to do. I've made a living on it. The one thing that I will say, though, is that the mission at the jail is constantly changing. So a 36-year-old facility has difficult, from a physical standpoint, meeting the mission that you have to serve today. For instance, when you're jail, like, just an example, in 1988, 89, nationally, the female population in jail in 1989 was about 1.5% to 2% of the jail population. Today, it's, what, 25 to 30%? So things have changed, socially, and the buildings need to adapt, and the way, especially a 36-year-old jail has a hard time adapting. But I will say two things about your jail of particular note. This is on the positive side. For a 1989 jail, it was pretty advanced in its design for its time. For instance, the idea of the rear chases and so forth like we're proposing here, I've been doing this my whole career, I didn't even see another rear chase design until the early 2000s, and I was one of the first people doing them. And you have that. Secondly, I will say for a jail of its age, it's probably, and I've seen hundreds, I've been in and out of hundreds of jails, mostly out, sometimes in.
Visit.
Yes, most of the time. But I would say that for a 36-year-old jail, you probably have one of the best maintained facility I've ever seen. So that, you get credit for taking care of it, because it could be a whole lot worse. I mean, the whole thing could be falling down around your ears like a lot of jails that are 36 years old, and you have the opportunity to expand it rather than replace it. So that's good. But paying for these is a common issue. These things are they're very expensive. I mean, we're talking about, $800 or so a square foot for a jail. That's a big cost. And a lot of the people, I mean, there's all kinds of ways that, most of the time people are paying for these with some kind of sales tax. They're doing bond issues of various types. It's a hard thing. It runs the gamut. I've had one county, I know you wouldn't qualify for this, but I've had a couple, like 3 or 4 counties in my career that took USDA loans out where they could extend the amortization over 40 years. Well, that's still a long time, but it gave them a payment to low enough that they could meet their needs and shuffle thing around. But there's no, from a financing standpoint, I can't really help you with any brilliant ideas there, but I know it just runs the gamut. And I would say most of the counties in this country have either built or expanded their jail in the last 10 years. It's just, it's again, it's the society has changed, and the lack of flexibility in the way old jails were designed just can't meet the mission anymore. And you're actually kind of on the fortunate side of that, that yours can be adapted and again, the idea with this addition is we're putting all those special populations that didn't used to exist all in one place in the jail, making the rest of the jail work better and safer. So but you have that opportunity to make those changes.
And how often does the state contribute to jail construction? Like when I think of the state contributing to other things, like, say, land conservation, where we have this thing going on where we're buying a lot of conservation lands these days, and we put up a little bit, the state puts in a bunch, and we get the job done. But is that done in jail construction too? Where we put up a little bit and they put up a bunch and we get the job done?
Well, and again, here you're actually on the lucky side. I work in 12 states, and Florida is the only state that I'm aware of that the state actually contributes to through the funding that you have. There's no federal money out there unless you're doing mental health. Now, again, the mental health is the key. Everybody in the country is talking about trying to do something with mental health. Very few people actually do it because they can't afford to get it done. I mean, that's like the catch-22. But in the state of Florida, I think you tend to have more opportunities for state funding than most states. Most of the states I work in, there's nothing from the state.
Would it be unheard of for the state of Florida to pay for half or 2/3 of the construction of a new jail?
Well, in the case of like Okeechobee recently, they were able to get some state money for about half of what they did. Yes.
Okay.
They're also constrained.
All right, thanks a lot.
they get some state aid for the operational budget?
All the money I'm aware of is all for capital.
Yeah. Commissioner Heatherington?
I just, two quick comments. When you talked about jail overcrowding and what are some of the sheriff mentioned, what do some of the other larger populated areas do? Is you start mitigating and letting basically what I would call criminals off on this or that, or, you're not prosecuting particular crimes. I feel like as far as Martin County, our number one value here is public safety. Everybody will tell you they feel safe. This is why people move here. This is why people stay here. This is why businesses locate here. And I believe that there's not only a physical safety with having an overcrowded jail or not addressing the mental health of the population, there's a real economic threat to your community. If there's jail overcrowding, we can't accommodate that, and people are not feeling secure, and we have to let criminals walk because we can't afford to house them or mentally treat them. So I just noted that, had not thought about that until Commissioner Capps talked about what are some of the overcrowded jails. I never would want to see us at all acquiesce or give on our public safety is number one, I think, hands bar in the state of Florida, and we should definitely keep it that way. And then as far as strategically positioning legislatively to capitalize on any kind of state dollars this year, I flipped over to our presentation that we're having this afternoon. And on the first page of our strategic state priorities is the public safety mental health initiative. So I hope that we are helping you and supporting you in positioning that strategically so that the legislature knows that the county is there to support you to bring home as many dollars as you can.
As the sheriff said, pay him now, pay him later.
Any further discussion, comments? Thank you for your presentation. Thanks, Sheriff. We'll see you all soon.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sure, let's take up Department 5. Yes, Department 5. Ms. Powers.
Hello, Sarah Powers, Legislative Coordinator. So kind of following, just wanted to answer a quick question about state funding. So the year, the budget for 2023-24, when we received our $500,000 for an appropriation for the planning and design, 7 other counties also received money for jail expansions, or that year in particular, Okeechobee County got $1 million for their jail renovation, and Union County got almost $7 million. So it's definitely not unheard of. I was trying to look up all the other budgets really quick, but that was just, I had that pulled up from our the year we had happened to get funds. So we'll go through the state priorities and then the federal priorities as well. And as you can see, the first priority is that mental health pod. So this year, we are seeking $30 million to fund phase 1. And then next year, we would intend to file another appropriation for the remaining $30 million. And then in the meantime, there's also some other places we've identified through grant programs and other things that are available to help offset some of the operational costs, some other programming costs once the jail is up and running. We are working with the sheriff's office on identifying some of those as well. We have Ken Pruitt on our lobbying team, and he's kind of taken the lead on that, helping us identify. So not only this is our number one priority, but then having identifying other state resources where can help out in the long run. So
Also, Mr. Marak seemed to feel that for mental health issues, there are federal dollars available.
yeah,
So
we're looking into that as well.
investigate.
Yes. So that's using the sheriff's office language. So technicality, since we own the jail, we have to file the county file the appropriation in conjunction with the sheriff's office, but it kind of goes, the money comes through us. So that's, so it's our priority, it's the sheriff's office priority. It's also, I think the sheriff mentioned Representative Snyder's priority. He's up and coming in leadership, and he's spoken with the incoming speaker, this current speaker, and mental health. The conversation around it is definitely one that's going to be highlighted this session and the sessions to come. So with his position, he's really excited about this. So hopefully that will bring us positive outcome. Our next priority is another local bill. This project came about after last year's local bill. Cleveland Clinic had identified our indigent care tax that they have not been able to use, and it's kind of just been, the tax has been around since the 60s, and it hasn't been touched, it's been used, but not, the statute hasn't been modified since 2011. So once we started looking at it, Sarah Woods had actually helped us kind of identify some things that needed to be changed. So currently, it puts a lien, if you receive care, a lien goes on you as a person, and that's just an outdated practice. We don't use that anymore. We've never collected on it, to my knowledge. So it was just an outdated practice that we are revisiting and hoping to just make some minor changes to that. Does anyone have any questions on that before I keep going?
Questions?
Those are our two main projects, and then we go into the rest of the priorities. These are have remained unchanged. We have pretty long-standing priorities. Of course, water, all things environmental. So our SERP program, the SERP projects, IRL South restoration. We continue to support dedicated funding for that from the state as well, and you'll see it in the federal, the same theme in our federal priorities as well. Long-term funding for all those projects, the natural lands component of IRL South, and restoring the Loxahatchee flow. It's conservative land acquisition. We kept that in there, of course, especially with our new sales tax and advocating for conservation land always with the state. Supporting biosolid initiatives, septic to sewer conversion, that is still definitely a state priority, as well as a Martin County priority, making sure that all those state programs are fully funded. And of course, dedicated coral reef funding and resilient coastline program efforts at the state. Again, making sure, advocating for those programs to be fully funded, like the Coral Reef Tract and the effects of rising sea levels and all the programs FWC as well as DEP offer. This is a big topic I know that has come up. We supporting and opposing home rule, supporting home rule, opposing any legislation that affects home rule and shifts any financial burden from the state to local level, and unfunded mandates as well. More water quality and natural resources. Our human service and public safety, of course, supporting the SHIP program, the District 19 medical examiner facility that's been getting reoccurring state funding, again, continuing investment in our emergency operations center, and efforts for the mental health treatment programs. Our tourism and economic vitality program, that's been a big, the tourism tax has been a big part of conversations at the legislative level. I've worked with Narissa. We think that's coming back with just the general taxing conversation. So, we're going to continue to oppose decreasing funding levels to Visit Florida and keep that ability to use that tax in Martin County. Our infrastructure, recreation, and transportation priorities pretty much remain the same, supporting the DOT's 5-year work plan, DOT's Target Zero campaign, our historic buildings, the state's historic buildings program, supporting any sort of transportation funding for the railroad bridge, as well as potentially a rail station, and intercity passenger rail services. So those are our state priorities. Any questions?
Who made this brochure?
Our communications team did this. I was handed this document on day one, and it's just sort of evolved every year. It did get a new look this year.
Well done.
Yes, Courtney took the lead on the design of it. Martha Ann and Laura, they've all been really great to work with, the design and all of that. But like I said, this especially this federal document, I can't take all the credit for. It's been handed down for quite a while.
No, but I mean, obviously, the information that is from you, but the look and feel is,
Yeah.
I think, very appealing.
And then we'll go through, was there any questions on the state priorities?
Commissioner Capps has one.
Okay.
Yes, on tourism and economic vitality, and so that has to do with the bed tax, tourist development tax, is that what it's called, TD?
Yes.
Tourist Development Tax, TDT. Yeah, like what has been the trend in Tallahassee? I know it seems like there's been a lot of political battles going on with what to do about tourism in Florida. Like there's this contingent up there that feels like we shouldn't be spending any money promoting the state of Florida at all, and no tourism. And I suppose the effort to control this local tax comes from that sentiment that tourism just a waste of time and money. You shouldn't spend any money on it at all. So what's going on with it up there as far as like what their other plans would be for that money?
So last year, the sentiment of getting rid of that tax would just be to return some of that money to the taxpayer. It wasn't really rhyme or reason. It was more so just to provide relief. I think they looked at what were being taxed and what property owners are being taxed, and that was just something that they identified. I think when we looked at it for Martin County, it would have equated to like $50 a person. So it wasn't, but counties like Orlando, they might have felt it a little bit more. But it was really just trying to get rid of and change the way that could be spent, so we could spend it on different, the government could spend it on different things versus what it's supposed to be used for, tourism development and tourism as a whole, county by county. And we use it for some of our beach programs as well. So they were just trying to, basically it was just a rebate to taxpayers.
And Commissioner, I'm not sure that it's about limiting tourism as much as it's about how tourist development councils are spending the funds. And it's managed different ways around the state. And in Martin County, we don't have a lot of big hotel destinations. I mean, we do have some excellent hotels here, but the money we generate is fairly small compared to, obviously, to like Pinellas County, where they collect on the order of, or Orange County, where they're collecting close to, there are hundreds of millions of dollars being collected, where we collect, what is it? What? 3.5 million, yeah. So we're 3.5. So I think the complaint was over the organizational structure of how some of these are managed, and then it was, and of course the hoteliers are very concerned that it really is about promotion of tourism and to keep the engine moving, if you will. That it takes a lot of money to keep keep the international and the national tourism going. And I think the legislature was looking at taking some of those funds that are collected from tourists and redistributing them back to the counties in some way. And that structure is what's concerning, especially a small county like us where we don't really collect that much. So anyway, those are some of the topics we can continue to follow with you on.
Please continue.
On to our federal priorities. Again, these have remained mostly unchanged since I got here, but still very important. As you can see, we also have a new senator in our delegation, so we've made the efforts to visit not just our delegation offices when we go up, but the Florida delegation as a whole is that they have time to make sure that they know we're here, and we travel to DC to make a difference. So again, you'll see we support SERP again at the federal level, passage of a WRDA bill every 2 years, supporting Indian River Lagoon South Phase 2 projects.
I would add to that, the muck removal. It's part of IRL South. It needs to be, it probably will be a shared state, federal responsibility, but needs WRDA authorization in order to get into the integrated delivery schedule.
Noted. We will make sure we add that. I know we've been working on it when we go to DC. So.
With the board's concurrence, we'll add in muck removal as a statement in this document.
So again, just continuing funding of our beach restoration and inlet management programs, the National Estuaries Program, supporting full funding of that. Again, the Restoring Resilient Reefs Act comes up, and we obviously support that. Water quality and natural resources, supporting the SRF management program. Conservation land acquisition, again, big theme in DC, but with our half-cent sales tax, we really put ourselves kind of at the top of that. We have the dollars, and that's really impressive when we go to meet with legislators from across the country, not just the state. They're very impressed by Martin County. And most of them know who we are, especially if they serve on a environmental committee. They know Martin County. They see what we have, and all part of our advocacy. And again, federal grants for a new station, supporting that, and we've gotten positive feedback from our congressman on that new grant program. So we had to make sure we included that as for the station, but again, also for the bridge. That's not our grant at this point, but we definitely would be benefiting from that. And that is all I have on the priorities.
Questions from Ms. Powers?
Okay. So going forward, next steps, so we will keep these in draft form until the delegation meeting. Obviously, our delegation has to approve. They have to say yes, that they're going to, publicly, that they're going to sponsor our appropriation request, as well as sponsor and file our local bill. Of course, we're pretty confident that they're going to do that, but they'll remain in draft form. So if anything, if for some reason they didn't, we had to take it out, it would come back to you. But for now, with that minor change and the ability to come back and just get final approval, we'll keep them in draft form until the delegation meeting. So as long as, probably need a motion to approve them in this state, and then they'll come back probably as a consent item to final approval.
Okay. You need a motion to approve the legislative
And I will
priorities?
give you one.
So, second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes unanimously. And this morning, Commissioner Capps brought up SB 180. Keep us apprised of any glitch bill progress.
Absolutely.
Sarah Powers, excellent job.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, let's return to Department 1.
Hello. Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Stephanie Murley here. I'm Director of OMB to present 4 items today. Our first item is permission to accept the fiscal year 25-26 Children's Services Council Grant Program, the After School, Out of School Program Grant. This is an annual grant that our Parks and Recreation Department gets. They are requesting the acceptance of $407,347 to pay for the staff, maintenance, supplies, and programming at various camps provided by Parks and Recreation. There is a grant match required of approximately $578,372, which is budgeted in our FY26 Parks and Recreation operational budget. And speaking of mental health, we have a permission to accept the Mental Health Awareness Training Grant. Our Human Services Department is requesting the acceptance of a grant award of $120,000 for the 3rd year of the Mental Health Awareness Training Grant. This enables the county to expand and support local efforts that provide mental health awareness trainings, more of a preventative grant, and there is no cash match required for that. Item number 3 is a permission to accept the Community Services Block Grant for 2025-2026. Our Human Services Department is requesting the acceptance of $102,547 in CSBG funding for operating expenses related to assisting residents to connect them to resources that are available to assist them. There is no cash match required for this either. And the very last item is a permission to accept the Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant, or the JAG grant. We are requesting a grant award of $63,984 to support Martin County's mental health court drug testing expenses. It enables the county to offset drug testing supplies incurred by the mental health court program, and there is no cash match required for that either.
Mr. Capps?
Yes, number 3, block grants. Can you explain what they are? Who contributes to them? And I believe there's a separate board that handles block grants, right? A county board?
So the Community Services Block Grant is actually federal funding that is passed through St. Lucie County. Michelle, if you have more information on that, but it's typically just an operating type grant to connect people, but Michelle can explain.
Hi, good afternoon. Michelle Miller, Human Services Director. So yes, the Community Services Block Grant, we're part of a consortium of 4 counties that get that money that's funneled through St. Lucie County. We get a percentage of the total funding, and that allows us some operating costs for staff and also provides some money for rental assistance if there's any left over.
Okay, and then why are we considered a subcontractor to St. Lucie County?
Because it goes to them directly, and then we contract through them. So they get the money from the federal government, goes directly to them. They manage it, and then they give us a percentage
They're
of
kind
it.
of like the host county for
Exactly.
for 4 counties?
Yes,
We're a subrecipient of that.
I got you.
yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further questions? Is there a motion for approval?
Move approval.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Department 2 is contracts that meet the threshold for board approval of $1 million or greater. Commissioner Heatherington, is this when you make an
Yes.
announcement?
Yes, there's only one item today, so I will be abstaining from this departmental number 2. I have filed my Form 8B with the clerk with the conflict of an employment with Ferrera, and I will abstain.
Okay. Proceed, please.
Christy Brotherton, your Chief Procurement Officer. For consideration today, I have one contract, and it is a continuing services agreement for bridge construction and maintenance. This contract has a maximum not-to-exceed value of $5 million with a maximum not-to-exceed term of 5 years. Individual projects or work orders do not exceed $300,000 per Florida statute. Staff is recommending that the board award the contract to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, which is Ferrera Construction Company. and move that the board authorize a county administrator or designee to execute all documents related to this request. And that concludes this item.
Questions for Ms. Brotherton? Commissioner Capps?
So this, let's see, individual projects shall not exceed $300,000. So it sounds like this is like smaller work on bridges and things, maintenance things, signs.
Maintenance,
and-
repairs, anything that exceeds the $300,000 mark will be, usually, it'll be formally bid. There's usually CIP sheets. I know Public Works has a bridge maintenance program that they go by, so you'll see
Kind of
that.
on an as-needed basis.
Yeah,
like
these
a-
are for the smaller projects, just repairs and maintenance.
Okay, thank you.
Would you like to add anything?
Yeah, Jim Gorton, Public Works Director. All of our bridges are inspected every 2 years, and we get a list of maintenance items that we need to address. And that's what this contract would be used for largely, was to go in and do those minor repairs to bridges.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Is there a motion to
I would
approve?
make a motion to accept staff's recommendation.
Second?
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes 3-0 with Commissioner Heatherington abstaining. Now, unless I'm wrong, we have completed all of our tasks. Would anyone from the public like to address us? Good timing.
How about that, gentleman?
Yeah, please.
We stopped our meeting so you could speak.
Thank you, guys. Joe Flanagan, for the record. I'm here representing Project Graduation, and we're in the midst of getting ready to start our new round of things. And I just happen to have a couple of certificates. Several of the commissioners were there and supported us, and I'd like to present you guys with some plaques that address that. And the other part is, we're in the middle, actually, I have a meeting today at 5 o'clock, because we've got some concerns on the venue. In the past, we've had it at the Boys and Girls Club, and Fletch has done a great job with us. He's worried about some of his funding sources and said he's not sure he could handle 3 nights in a row. And we did the same with the YMCA. And I'm not at liberty to disclose where I think we're going to be able to have it, but I assure you, you will be excited if I can pull this one off. So we'll.
Train station?
How did you know? No, actually, I don't know. I'll go ahead and tell her. The guy's supposed to call me today and say if it's a yes or a no. But it's all right, the new Sears place that's the Elevate Fun. I went to that place, I'm like, this is great. So he's talking to his people and see if we can pull it off. Yeah, it's kind of one of those things where, like the lawyer that slides the number across the table and you look at it and go, okay, and you slide it back and all that one. We're at that stage. So we're there. So I don't know what the decorum is. You can just leave these here. I don't know if you want to do a photo op. You guys tell me.
Pass them to the bailiff. Therefore, they'll get here safely.
I appreciate it. And here's like my official public thing. But thank you guys for everything that's going on.
You
And
never stated your name for the record.
I did. Joe Flanagan.
There you are.
Yeah, retired school administrator, meddling in all people's business. So, no, but I will be in touch with you guys. And again, thank you for your support and so many things that you guys have on your table, and appreciate everything that you're doing to make all that happen.
Thanks.
All right, take care. Enjoy.
Would anyone else like to address us? Commissioner Capps, any further comments?
I'm good too.
I'm set. Commissioner Campy.
A reminder that on October 18th at 6:30 to 8:30, we'll have music in the park on Map Road. And I'd like to take a moment of personal privilege to wish my wife a happy birthday.
Happy birthday. And Commissioner Heatherington.
I'm all set, thank you.
Mr. Donaldson. All set. Ms. Elder. All set. We are adjourned.